Howdy doody, good friends, and welcome to the Mad Painter Show. Is God real? Is he? Is he? What brought us to the point in thinking or believing that he wasn't? So I had to think about this as I thought about the beginning part of my relationship with God, or before I even got this thing started. I had all of these questions. I mentioned before, when I was 19, I used to feel like, as far as the Bible, well, this was written by man, and man says this and man says that. How can I believe what the Bible says and it's written by man? So that may be one. The other part may be life experiences. The other part may be prayers not being answered, losing a loved one, or because of how you feel in comparison to what society has to say about how you're feeling. So we're going to look at this. And my number, if the people who have listened to me, I've often talked about Job. And I love the story of Job so much because if you only had Job as the Old Testament, it will definitely cover a multitude of things in studying that one story. But one thing I can say, whether you believe in God or not, life is going to be lifing. Because it's going to life, because that's what life does. It's life. And you'll have all these different situations of life where it be like, oh my goodness, this is really going on. So in this particular thing, I'm going to go through those lists and explain how we can kind of change our perspective in this thing and maybe possibly give God a chance to see, is he really real? So, in reflecting back on Job, he has all of these things going on. He's considered a good man. And in the last video that I did, I actually spoke on true religion and what God said, what true religion was in the book of James. And in looking at how Job actually demonstrated this true religion, and he could have possibly, because I've had many discussions, do deep talks about Job, but he could have possibly had some experience with God or some kind of inkling of something, because he did have a thing where he kept going, he kept believing, he still had a faith there somewhere. So here we're looking at this thing of bad life situations, because Job covers all of these things just about. Okay, and so we have these bad life situations. I'm going to cover back to that part and where I went to with when I was 19. Actually, I'm just going to go and talk about that now before I get to the bad experiences. In actually experiencing God myself, I've recognized that, and this is where I bring up journaling, because in the Mastering Self-Love class, it is a requirement for you to have a journal. And while you're going through this journey of discovering yourself, discovering God, discovering love, etc., etc., etc. But when you journal, you will recognize that in periods where you experience God, that voice of when you're writing something out is totally different from the voice that you speak every day, or how you're thinking how you're thinking in your mind, because that has a voice as well. But you will see that it's a totally different voice. So in experiencing that, when you experience a thing and you experience love, we'll just even go on love relationships, you will talk differently speaking from love than you would from hurt. And if you are walking in hurt and we're reading in a position where you were writing from love, the wisdom will be different. The information will be different. You will have something to give to yourself as opposed to something taking away. So we go to these bad experiences. And in these bad experiences, man, stuff can really hit the fan and life can really be difficult. And this is, again, where we come with Job or any of the people. And I would, instead of saying characters, I like to say our ancestors. And many of our ancestors that are there in the Bible, it shows everybody has a struggle. Everybody has these situations in life where stuff hits the fan and you just be like, oh my God. And that is the place where where it's like God wants you to get to. And for us to, we get to a point that we don't really appreciate. I want to say understand. We really don't appreciate the fullness of a thing until we've been broken. And when we've been broken and experience what we have been broken from, when that part comes together and it becomes a whole, it brings joy. It brings peace, and you recognize the difference. And so in the life experiences and in opening up to God, when we open up to God and express to God what's going on with us, and just invite him in on our struggles, along with giving thanks. Because think of your friends. When you go to your friends and you just go on complaining and complaining and complaining and complaining and complaining, are they really sitting there trying to listen to you all the time and, you know, always there when you call? And be honest about that answer. Because it's like, you don't, even to people, you don't want to just come with negativity. So in looking at God, it may seem as if there are these negative situations going on, but that's not our focus. Our focus is in seeking him and getting to learn him and see what this thing is about. So when we are dealing with these life experiences and allowing God to come in on this situation, we are opening the doors for healing. We are opening the doors for forgiveness and of letting go, because people are going to be people. People are going to do bad things. People are going to do good things. People may be bad and people may be good, but that's not our focus. They should not affect how we are and what it is we're doing, unless they're like motivating us and inspiring us. But if it's a thing where they're bringing us down, wash your hands and focus on the impossible. Because love is not a feeling. Love is an action. Well, love is a multiple of things where you can feel it, but then there will be situations where you may not feel a thing, but it will definitely show itself and you will recognize it. And so we have to allow love to come in and fill in the gaps of these situations where we feel like we've been scarred for life. So, like this guy right here, I got this when I was a kid. There's multiple stories on this thing, but it was a situation where I looked at it as I got older, it's like, oh, it's not a scar that messed up my life. Man, I made it a part of my style. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, in the 80s or the 90s, they was trying to do it, and it's like I'm already rocking it. And so we have to go about allowing the healing to come, especially with my cutters. In cutting, I recognize that in cutting that's a transference of pain. I have plenty of tattoos, so trust, I understand. But it's something to not be ashamed of. This is a thing where you recognize this, and it's time to allow healing to come in and heal past that pain that you want to bring upon yourself. And even though you may feel that there is a place where you don't want to show these scars because of no matter how those scars got there, you made it through. You survived. That's nothing to be ashamed of, because even God shows you that he heals. He covers those things. And sometimes there will be things where there will be reminders, and sometimes there won't be. But it's a thing of, when it comes to helping others, because we're not just that. And looking at Job, he didn't just go through, because he went through so much. He didn't just go through this thing for him and be like, oh, I done came up on the end. Look at God. Ooh. No, it was a thing so that he can be an even better person, the best person, not just good, but the best person, because he has a discerning spirit and where he can really do the true religion and love. So we move on to prayers not being answered. there are multiple reasons as to why prayers aren't being answered, and especially in looking at God being our Father, because it's no longer just a God thing, like, but he's coming from a caring, loving position. There are going to be things that we ask for that we'll get that doesn't seem like that's according to his will or according to anybody else's will, because it seems like you shouldn't have that. That's an alcohol, or that's a drug, or I know plenty of people that pray for things and pray for drugs and pray for things like that, and they do receive them. But little do you know, you don't know these people's story. And even though they're receiving something that you think they shouldn't have, God is still in the midst of things, because you don't know what their relationship is with God, because this is something for you to experience for yourself. So you may get things that you think you shouldn't have. You may not get things that you think that you should have. But this comes to, again, the relationship, because this question comes to, is God real? And if you're constantly seeking after his hand, like gimme, 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 well, I want this, I want that, we come back to looking at people and someone who loves you. And you constantly going to somebody who loves you, talking about what you want. Let me hold something, put something in my pocket, give me something. So it's like if you're constantly asking them for something, whether it be attention, monetary stuff, to solve your problems, to whatever it is, and it's just all about you, honey, they're not even going to want to be bothered. So we're looking at this situation and not looking at God as just like people, and if people don't want to be bothered, God doesn't want to be bothered. No, love. This is a situation where it's respect. It's a thing where you don't want somebody doing you like that. And when you recognize that people are more thankful and grateful to you and appreciative of you, aren't you willing to be more open? Aren't you willing to give more? So in you genuinely seeking God out and seeking what it is that his will is for you, this one changes your prayers. The other part of prayers not being answered, because it comes also along with processing. Sometimes the things that we ask for, we're not mature enough to receive the answer. And our answer comes along with us being processed for the answer, because when we receive the answer, then it'll be like, oh, I understand it now. Because you needed to be processed before you actually just receive the full point blank answer. So you may be in the process of being processed. Continue to see God. Give thanks. Don't give up, because that mustard seed of faith, it is a seed. Is God real? All of these things that is of the trees that are huge, all of these things that are of nature that is around and surrounding you, started from a seed, started from something small, and it processed and it grew. Light was given, water was given, but God gave the increase. Stuff can be on this earth, man don't even have to touch it or have nothing to do with it, and it just grows abundantly. Okay, let me go ahead and go to the next one. Losing a loved one. I totally understand. Losing a loved one can be extremely difficult. And this is why it's a beautiful thing, and including God in on these situations and these struggles and these conversations. The one thing that blew me away with Jesus and reading about him, I believe it was in Matthew. It's in the Gospels. Read it. He had just found out. I've been watching The Chosen One, so I'm going to say Creepy John, because I just think that is so cute. So he just finds out that his cousin John is beheaded. And in Chosen One, they was calling him Creepy John. So Creepy John is like gone. And Jesus is getting ready to, talk to the people. And reading, like, it made me cry. And reading that scripture and him finding out about his cousin being beheaded, and then in still focus forward on his mission, that showed a lot about, one, he understands everything that we go through. And we go with Jesus and Job. Both experience loss. Both experience separation. But at the same time, there is a continuance that needs to go there. And along with, well, there's a continuance that needs to happen. And there is a time for everything. And wherever you are presently, no matter how you're feeling, you are not alone. And the whole thing is with the willingness and your will is asking him in. He's not just going to intrude in on like, yeah, so I seen that you was, I mean, sometimes he'll do that. But that really comes in a lot in relationship. But it's still a, what word am I? Consensual. Like, it's a thing where you gotta want this. I mean, this is not a situation like Zeus. He come in and take the booty and you just have his kid and you do what he does. You know, he had you all mad at him and you do what I say, do or else I'm gonna annihilate you and your family. And it's not a situation like that. It's a situation where you're developing a relationship, and especially when he's telling you not to do things or however this is going, it's out of love. It's not so much out of control. So this is where you're allowing God to come in your most vulnerable time. And I found out, especially in losing my dad, that my dad was my guy. Like, I understand that I talked about him and having abuse, but this was something that he suffered within himself, but he didn't treat me like that. And I loved my father, and I miss him every day. And low-key, I forgot how long it's been. My days are all messed up, but I miss him every day, and I think about him often, and also along with others that I have lost that are very close to me. But at the same time, God has shown me that he fills those gaps. The people aren't replaced, baby, when you have something genuine. You can't replace it. It cannot be replaced. Nothing can replace a one-of-a-kind love. Nothing. But God has a way of filling those gaps. God has a way of still putting people in your life that may remind you of the people that lost to help you to keep going. But you have to be willing to get past what's lost and let God. It's easier said than done, but once you recognize that in that vulnerable place, even when you're hurting, because that's when you're hungry and your heart is really open because it's been hurting so much and it's just desperate for love, he's gonna show up and show out. I guarantee you. And that's what this whole master in love thing, it is a guarantee that God will show up and he will talk to you, especially if you're willing to listen. If you prepare a place for him to come, which this is what the master in self-love is all about, is preparing a place for him to come and present himself to you. Because if you want to know if he's real, he's here to prove that he's a living God. It's not something that you have to come from of old, because the prophets of old have spoke of this God that existed back then. He is the same God that is living today. And it's all about that invite, like, hey. And it's kind of like, because it makes me think of the vampire thing, because it's funny how stuff be like twisted. Like, you got to invite the vampires in. It's almost like that, but not exactly like that. But it's a thing where he respects your will. He gave you free will for a reason. And in him giving you free will, this is a relationship thing where he's not making you do anything. It's up to you on what you want to do and what you want to believe. But the more you allow for him to do, it's like the experience. So we go down to the next one. Because of how you feel compared to what society has to say about you. My number one people, this is not the only people that I'm talking about, but with my people of the LGBTQ community, and if it's another letter included on there, forgive me. But if I missed out on you all. But my thing is, I get the whole gay thing and etc. being a sin or whatever. Baby, it's so much out here that people doing this a sin that it's like they may not be telling people, but it's like, that's why you put the finger back at yourself. Why are we so worried about what somebody else is doing with other consensual adults? I get when they're taking stuff from people, and heterosexuals do that. So my whole point in saying this portion of this, yeah, the Bible says this, and people say that. I totally get it, and I'm not going against any of that. But my point in saying that, just because these people are saying these things, or whatever is being written, whatever had been written about it, don't let this stop you from actually genuinely seeking out God for yourself, developing this relationship, finding out who He is. When you find out more about who God is and what His word is and our relationship to God, baby, don't worry about all that stuff. Because when Christ came, the whole thing wasn't, baby, when He was going into, whether He was going into the brothels or the bars or talking to the people who had leprosy, the man was not, I don't want to say the brother, because my brother wasn't walking around like, ew, you dirty. Ew, you dirty. Ew, do you know what that is? That's a sin. Ew, I don't want to touch you. If he was doing that, these people would not want to hear anything he had to say. So, if you feel bad about it, ask for forgiveness. But if you don't feel bad about it, however you're feeling about it, don't let this stop you from genuinely developing a relationship for yourself and seeing what God has to say to you, along with you reading His word, studying Him. Because what do you do with your partners? You study your partner. This is with anybody. You study your partner. You study the people, especially in this not being a selfish situation. When you're really in love with somebody, you want to please them. You want to make them happy. You want to do everything that you can to get this us together and keeping it together and making it work. Because it's not always about me. Okay? So, God says that He's a living God. And you want to, because if you're asking if He's real, then let Him prove that He's a living God. And how we go about letting Him prove He's a living God? By coming to Him with thanksgiving. By genuinely, with our whole heart, seeking Him out. Not about seeking Him out on what He can give us, but actually seeking Him out and seeing what He's about, what this us is about, what this earth and all of this is about, because He's the answer and He has it and He can show you, because He is living. He can definitely show you better than I can tell you. So, in my own answer, point blank, yes, God is real. Very much so. Very much so. And this is why I have this 30-day journey that's free, that you can send me your email and I'll send it right to you. I hate when people send me emails every day about nothingness, so trust, I'm not on that. My goal is for you to have your own relationship with God. Whether that takes 7 days or 30 days, I guarantee you, if you follow this, that you will get in connection with God. Trust. So, coming in Thanksgiving, wholeheartedly honoring Him and making it about Him and not so much about you. He'll show Himself to you. And the temple. So, in discussing, because I'm about to go ahead and end this. In discussing the temple, and I brought back in past videos that this is the temple. In the word, it does not say God will know you by your consciousness. It says, no, God will know you by your heart. When we bring Him here and let Him sit on our temple like the crown and let it flow down to our heart, this is what changes the being. because we want the alignment with the we want the alignment connected with the kingdom, with the Father, and understanding his will. And our brother Christ was connected to all of this. It's not Malibu Christ. It's not a thing and he's the privileged one and this is, oh, God bless America. Because I don't even remember in the Bible, America being mentioned. It probably is descriptively, but as far as this is America, no, it does not say that. Not saying that he's not blessing America, but that doesn't mean that he's not blessing the other countries too. You figured out where I'm coming from? So all of this is about developing this relationship for yourself, having him here, not just here, because you're not just going to know him here, but this is what's a part of that being. This is where life is flowing. And also, life is in the blood. And all of this, boy, it's so much layered in there, but still in connection and being accepted into this family and in understanding this will, baby, it's a game changer. It's a life changer. He could show you better than I could tell you. So feel free to go ahead and send me your email. Send that to you. Feel free to look through the artwork that's on there. Also on the Etsy page. If you're interested in getting you a journal that's with my art on there, it has a special touch to it. Because God touched me. I touched it. We're spreading the love. So like, share, subscribe if this video helps you out by any means. I love you. God loves you even more. And all of this is about finding out why. Because he is real. He's really real.